Yeah, can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Yes, Srikanth.
Yes, Srikanth.
Good. So any questions from last class before we start?
Just an update, Srikanth. I tried, so all the things worked once I have downloaded the Java. So yeah, I was able to do a few of the exercises.
Awesome. Yeah, I believe, I mean, most of the time we take those things for granted. Most of the system may have some Java. I think if you had a Java already, potentially it must have, when you install the Salesforce, I mean VS Code, it must have set the path by itself. I believe that's what it was missing. That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I initially when VS Code, I mean 2-3 years back when I started, it was really painful. I mean, for some reason it was not working for me. I mean, sometimes it worked, sometimes it was not working. I mean, after a while, I kind of gave up on VS Code. But there is another editor, IntelliJ IDEA. So that one is a lot better. I mean, it has more features than VS Code offers. But it is a paid one, so I think $90 per year or something. But I mean, I haven't used it that much, but I heard very good reviews about it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, same thing. I mean, I used to use Eclipse. Salesforce stopped supporting support for Eclipse later. I mean, Salesforce recommended IDE is VS Code, so they are not even saying okay, go for the IntelliJ IDEA. And there is another thing called Atom. I believe it is a little bit lightweight compared to IntelliJ IDEA, but I heard that is also a good one. But I mean, most of the videos from Salesforce itself, so most of them they use the VS Code. If you don't have any preference, stick with VS Code. So let's get starting. So yeah, today we can start. I mean, last class I started on the trigger a little bit, but I mean, I haven't completed any code there. So triggers are mainly, I mean, why we use triggers. We saw when we wanted to update ad hoc some email address. I mean, we are taking this email address as an example. I mean, mostly, I hope you are able to correlate. Okay, saying okay, we are doing something on some object, some change. Most of the times in Salesforce, everything is an object, and pretty much same are the techniques or ways you would be using for any object. Let's say if it is account object, you would be writing SOQL query on account object, and you just update a list of records. That's how you would be doing. Pretty much same for any object. If you do work on one object, pretty much you can say you are able to work on any other object. I mean, maybe there may be little exceptions here and there, but 95% of the time. So if you work on one object, more or less it's the same thing. So since we saw on the ad hoc one, so now there will be situations every time we create a record or we update a record, we want that to go through some business process or maybe some logic. So how do we do that? That's where the triggers will come handy. And so every time you update a trigger, update a record or create a record, Salesforce will fire or invoke these triggers for you. And so if at all you want to add any custom logic, so that is a place where you can add your code. In SAP, so it is something they call it as BADI or business. Yeah, I forgot the exact Yeah, I forgot the exact acronym for that one, but in SAP it is SAP CRM, it is BADI. SAP ECC, there is something called I think user exit or something. So, but more or less every system, every software will have some custom entry point for developer to write code. Okay, so that's how it works. And now we will take the same example. Whenever a contact is created in a sandbox system, I mean, we are even though we are writing our code in the dev training, it is actually a real production system. All the systems where you log in using login.salesforce.com, that is production system. Whereas if you log into any system using URL test.salesforce.com, that is sandbox. Since I mean, we can treat our developer edition as a training system or sandbox. So now, so anything that is that we or end user is going to create from the UI or maybe from the APIs like data loader or Postman, we want to apply the same business, same logic, even though the user added like okay ABC at def.com as email, we just want to add some dummy at that front. So let's take that scenario. And so one thing we can do, so whenever we after the contacts are created, we can run this fx class, and that can take care of it. But we want to make sure as soon as record is created, we want to apply that same logic, and we that way it is going to be a lot more cleaner. You don't have to run any background jobs or anything. So that's let's take that scenario and see how it works, how we do that. The scenario wise, are we clear?
Yeah.
Shrikant.
Yeah, Bharti.
Did we lose
Yeah.
you, Srikanth?
No, I'm here.
Oh, okay. Because
No, I saw you went out and came back again. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, Shrikant, you're clear enough.
Okay, I see Kishore. I think maybe it must be on his side potentially.
can you hear me, Srikanth?
I am able to hear you, but I don't see you here as one of the participants.
Oh, okay.
And also, I saw that you went and came back again without.
Yeah, suddenly it got disconnected. So I don't know if it was, maybe it was just my issue.
Yeah, are you able to see my screen?
Yes, I'm able to see your screen now.
Okay, I mean, I don't see you here. Oh, okay, yeah, right there, you are there. Okay.
Sorry about that.
No worries. So basically, I was explaining the scenario. So every time a contact is created, we want to make sure we put, I mean, if the user enters email address, we want to add the meet. So that's the scenario that we want to do. And also we want to use our existing class that we have written. So the class is this guy. So let's see. So we got this class. Okay, I hope you were able to see it on the fonts and everything. So first thing first. So when the trigger is called, I mean, couple of things on the trigger. So trigger always starts with the trigger name, the keyword, and then whatever the name that you want to give, and then it will have that on again some keyword, and then so you have to say the object name. Once you say the object name, so then there will be multiple scenarios that are contexts that you can that the trigger can invoke. So typically on any database, what are the things that can happen? So one, insert, and maybe we can update the records and we can delete the records. And also the way Salesforce designed this one, so you can fire this thing before a record is created, or after the record is created. So there is no create kind of keyword. Basically, insert is their tick keyword for that one. And you can invoke this code whether before insert or after insert. So, and once the records are created in the database, maybe again you can go back to the same record and you can update. So that time, so again, so there is before update and there is after update. So, and then, so when you are deleting the record, there is a before delete. And sometimes when you delete the records, basically Salesforce would put all these things in the recycle bin. And if at all, maybe if it is accidental deletion, or maybe if you want to get the data back, you can go back to the recycle bin and you can say, okay, hey, restore it. And at that time, so there is something called before undelete or after undelete. So there is another context that will be called. So like this, I mean, you can pass the context. And so you can say you want this guy to be fired for so and so context. So before insert, and if you want to say you want to call this as before update, so you can call something like this, okay? And so then potentially every time a contact record is either inserted or updated in the before scenario, it will trigger. And also, let's say if you want to write some custom code after update. So let's say at that time you will say after and insert. And so let's say if you also want to call this one after update. So, I mean, whatever the based on your needs, so you will write this thing, and that's how, I mean, the code will be invoked. If you don't write that, potentially the code won't be invoked for that scenario. I mean, if you have only before insert, and the code will only be invoked only for insert scenario, but not for update scenario.
So in this context,
yeah, go ahead, Kishan.
Yeah. So in this thing, right, like now you mentioned before insert as a context, right? Like on when. So before insert meaning, say assume that you are creating a new contact.
Mhm.
Before you insert, some action should happen. Is that what it is?
Yeah, before the, I mean, yeah, the transaction will get committed into the database after so many things happen in the system. Basically, it has to go through validation rules. It has to go through your flows. It has to go through triggers. So many things has to happen. But on those things, potentially there is insert. If you can write some scenarios on insert. Let's say if you want to default some values based on some scenario, and you can use insert context. But let's say if when you create an account, you want to create an opportunity also for that account immediately. So for that scenario, you will use after insert. And after typically you don't write another object operations in before before context. You always write those in the after context. So that way, at least the transaction is guaranteed to save. I mean, if you do it in before, sometimes there may be some validation rule or something else might prevent the transaction. At that time, you don't want to create that tail record like opportunity or anything for that account. That's why it's always better or advised to do the external, I mean, different object operations in especially if you want to create or update some records, you better do in after context. So if you want to create, I mean, let's say you are creating a contact, automatically if you want to create an opportunity for that one or maybe task for that contact to meet that contact or something. So typically you don't write that one in the insert scenario. You write that, you don't write before insert, but you do it after insert. That way, that contact will be saved in the database, and then you create the task. That way, it will be cleaner.
So I mean, I'm thinking like usually the before insert or update they'll have more like validations or
default values and those kind of things. So if you
default values. Okay, got it.
and so in this case, what we are saying, so not only default values, you want to manipulate some values of the same record. If you want to work on the same record, you better use insert before scenario. And if you want to use if you want to do something for another object, you do after scenario. So in this case, maybe our contact, we can create a contact, we can update a contact, and we can update email address, or we can, while creating itself, we can add that email field also, right? So for that, you are doing the operations on the same object. That's why you are better off using before scenario, before context. Either before, if it is create scenario, use in the before insert scenario, you update that email address, or if it is update, so use before update scenario. That way, you and also in the after update, after context, the same record. Let's say you are updating a contact, and you can only update contact in the before update context. But if you try to update and after update, it will throw an error, because you don't want to do the same object operations in the after context. Okay, so let's say here do same record operations in before context. Do same record. Yeah, so same record DMLs. Let's call, not, I don't want to call DML. If you want to update email address, if it always use either before insert or before update. If you want to create or use, let's do this way, use before context. Same record operations. Or cross object. So email this one is example. Okay, so whereas here example, yes. So I mean, is it clear, or you want me to explain again? So there is a before insert and before update, two contexts. And if you want to update the email, I mean, especially while creating, use before insert and use this guy. And the same thing, if someone goes to an existing record and if they try to update contact email, and then again fire in the before update, fire your custom logic. Confusing?
Bit
So-
confusing. Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, if you so for when you write before insert, right? So before even, and I'm trying to enter a new email ID.
Not when you are trying. Basically, these things will fire. You go to UI, you enter detail. Okay, let's actually go. I think let's do a few things here.
Okay.
Then he will understand this better. And also, I think I can say trigger dot. See. So basically, I took all the and maybe 4 scenarios, 4 contexts. Now I'm just writing it to debug log, and let me save this thing. Plug is source to arc, and also let's open the arc once.
So you're just going to print what operation?
Yeah. So basically,
What context? Okay.
and so to fire this one, so as I said, all we have to do is either the trigger is running in the before context and after context. All we have to do is create a contact or create a contact. Okay. So now let's try to create a contact and see what is the debug log that we are going to see. And also to
Srikanth, so you're going to create a contact now and see how
yeah,
this gets triggered, right? Like, and how does the system know that there is a trigger associated to it?
we wrote
This object is
He just deployed it, right?
yeah, I mean we deploy to the arg, and also the trigger is written. I mean the name is not
Contact.
name is trivial. I can use any name. The on object, that is the most important. So because we are using this guy on contact, and whenever I create a contact, because I'm using these contexts, it will fire. I mean that is framework thing, so it will fire.
okay. So yeah, actually, you deployed it. I didn't see you deploy, so you deployed it, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Got it. Yeah.
And also the trigger thing. So let's see here. This status is active is very important. Sometimes I can even inactivate, and when I run it, it won't trigger anything. Okay. I'll show you those things also. Now let's go back to contact. Yeah, last class we didn't even go to the arc, I think.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so before that, to see the debug logs, we need to enable debug logs. So the way you enable debug logs, again, same thing, command, view command palette and debug. So basically you have to select turn on Apex debug log for replay debugger. So it is not, I mean, most of the systems will have real-time debuggers. I mean, Salesforce also has real-time debugger, but we need to buy. For that, I think we can use the replay debugger. Basically, some things will happen, and then you open the file and you start debugging. So it is little different way.
But you wrote system.debug, right?
Yeah, even for that one, system.debug. Earlier, when we are invoking, it was writing the thing into terminal, and we were seeing it.
Right.
Actually, maybe I will show you. Okay, quickly, let's try to create this thing. Mr. C, and then we call this as here, and email field. Let's set ABC. Okay, let's set that guy. And now I saved it. When I immediately I won't see anything here. Okay, so Apex debugger is still running. I mean, setting the turning on the Apex debugger is still running, so that is not completed, and you won't see any of that right away here. Okay, and now I mean there is another way. If you open developer console, so you can see those logs immediately, but we want to use IDE as much as possible. That's why I mean this is another way you can see it, and when you create that guy, immediately the logs you can see it here. I will show you this thing, but I don't want to spend a lot of time here because we will do the same thing in the back
Yeah.
later. So now let's do one more thing. I open the developer console here. So the developer console is on, and now I select this ABCDEF contact. And so as you see here, the email, whatever I want to select, the dummy and all that stuff is not there. I mean, that's our requirement. And now let's say if I change any of these things, maybe DFE something, if I change this guy, I save it, immediately my the developer console is showing these things. Okay, I have logs here.
Okay.
I can always go check, okay, what is there in here, all that stuff. And let's see. See here, contact trigger on contact object. And if you see this thing before update, that's the statement that we wrote on line number 6 here. So that's the guy we are seeing here already. What is the context that it is firing in? So since we updated, it is calling in the update mode. And
so this is okay. I'm seeing before update, right?
yeah.
So it happened before we changed and saved it.
Yeah.
The minute you clicked edit, do you think it came up?
No, it won't do that. So basically, when I click on this guy again, let's say here, the trigger won't get fired here. So let's go back to the console. And so still you see there are 1, 2, 3. So those are 8.
Yeah.
So it is that it won't do. Basically, it needs a DML operation. DML operation will come into picture only
when there is a change.
when you hit save.
Yeah.
When you hit save, potentially there are 2 things that should happen. So let's say for this email, I don't put email at gmail.com or anything. I save it, try to save it.
Which is a validation.
Basically, yeah, we don't write any validation rules on contact object, but there are system things that will fire. For email, it already expects some format. So then system will say, hey, you didn't follow some format, and it will immediately throw error. So this is typically done on the client side.
Right.
And we see our developer console.
I'll not see anything.
Even now, nothing. So now let's and update this guy to some maybe gmail.com or something. Now I save it. It is a valid format. So now it lets you to go to execute the rest of the things. Those rest of the things, one of those should be our trigger. And the trigger will come and so now it basically, if you see there are these unread ones, so the sum of those should be our trigger guy.
Yeah. Okay.
Contact trigger. So that's the one we wrote on the contact object. And there is before update. And let's see what is this thing. This is potentially some other process that it is doing some duplicate check or something. Okay, so which we didn't do, but this is our important thing. And in this guy, so when you look at this guy, so there is before update and there is after update. So the way we wrote this thing, there is before update, there is after update. All we did was, there is an existing record, we updated that record. So when we updated that record, so for update, there is before, there is after, 2 contexts. Okay. So now let's do one more thing. So we will, this time we'll create a new
Srikanth, I kind of couldn't get it, like, so you updated the email, right? It means that you're changing something on the contact record. So you're updating, meaning, like, as soon as you update, the trigger gets fired, right? When the trigger gets fired, all it is doing is printing whether it's before update or after update, like, the context, right? So when you change the email and then save it, and the trigger gets fired, like, what exactly are we doing? Like, it's changing right away, right? So the update is happening as soon as you.
We changed on the UI. So we did not tell, let's say I change this thing and if I cancel it, so I'm not sending any information to server. So if you change something and if you change your mind and close this thing, nothing will happen. when you say, hey, I want to save this thing, or I want to save one new, so at that time you are telling the system, or from the client, it is sending a message to server saying, okay, hey, I changed something, you take it. Basically, you process it. When we are processing it, so there may be something that we want to check, we want to write some business logic, all this stuff. That's where we use the trigger. We add our custom logic. So changing on the UI doesn't do anything unless until you invoke that DML. So DML means the data manipulation language. So hitting that save is going to fire that DML.
Okay, so hitting the save, like, that is why when the trigger actually gets invoked.
Yeah.
Right. But why is it printing after update and before update?
Yeah, that's the thing. So in Salesforce, there are they are giving you two to make your software work properly. So you may want to update same record. So that's the thing I wrote in the thing. So if you change an account, I mean, in update scenario or create scenario, while you are creating a record or updating a record, you want to update on the same thing. Let's say you write some email, and maybe at the same time you want to update some other field for some reason. So that may be your business logic. So every time you update a record, so no matter what, I want to update some, maybe let's say we want to capture how many times a contact is been updated. Okay, so every time you save it, so we have one counter. Basically, we increment it. That will say, okay, hey, this contact has been updated maybe 100 times, 200 times, so on. So okay, so in order to, you are updating on the same record one field, another field. So at that time, you use those before context triggers, either before insert or before update. So the before is applied on the same record update operations. Okay, so that's the thing here.
Okay, since we are doing it on the same record, it is.
Yeah, if you want to change something, maybe some other field or maybe same field, you want to manipulate it little differently on the same object. So that is very critical, same object. So if you want to do something else, maybe while you are creating a contact or updating a contact, if you want to do something else, I mean, task is a different object. Okay, so at that time you use after context, after insert or after update, after update. So that way you maybe you are done with this record. Now move on to something else, basically related record. So that's what we are saying.
Okay. Yeah, I get the other thing. It's the second thing that you said. But if you go to the logs on the console, right, it printed two things, like, one is before update.
Okay.
Correct?
Yeah.
And the other one is after update, right? So before update, yes, because,
okay,
because we are doing it on the same, we are doing the operation on the same thing.
Yeah, you will understand now. Sure, 1 second.
Okay. Sorry if I'm taking more time.
It's got to, I mean, we need to be clear here. So now what I'm doing, I'm going to remove after context. Okay, both of them I'm going to take it out. Okay, so we have only before insert, before update. So what we are doing, so either we are updating a contact or we are creating a contact. Okay, so now I will save this thing and send it over to server. I mean, we are changing the trigger a little bit.
Okay.
We are applying only for insert scenario or update scenario only for before context. So now basically, let me reload this page. I mean, just to make sure we have latest code. So now if I create a contact or update a contact, you will see only one log. I'm going to create so email doesn't matter. So I mean, for now, so let's create this guy. And now if we go back to our debug log, so we got somewhere here 838 and the contact. See, now there is only before insert. Okay, so there is only one. So there is no after insert. So that is because we removed after insert scenario.
Mhm.
This is our active code. So
Okay.
same contact, let's go back and update this guy. I mean, and here in here you are seeing different things. Okay. So now when I save it and when I see the debug log, so contact trigger, so before update. Okay.
Okay.
So now let's go back, take out this code. I mean, we maybe for some time, if at all we need, let's. So let's activate our own code on the previous code. Okay, so while we set the debug log, where was that thing? Back into the debug log. Okay, so here you see recording details. When you set the debug logs, it only set the debug logs for 30 minutes. That's why it is saying maybe I hit that thing, debug log thing at 8:29. Now it is basically on Salesforce side, it captures the debug log and we will have it ready whenever we want to see it. So, but you have to download that thing. So when you do that thing, operation, potentially again you have to go back and so this time, so get effects debug logs. If you say that, potentially it will show some debug logs and whatever you want to pick. So potentially you can download it and then you will see it. Basically now the debug log, whatever you see, you used to see here. So those you have access to for them in the IDE itself. And now again, so if you want to see that stuff, potentially you will see somewhere here what was the context, all that stuff, whatever we were writing. So now onwards, we will once we do something on the UI, we will come back and we will check it here. I mean, we retrieve the log, we check those things. Okay. Again, so let's okay, did we deploy? I think we deployed. Let's see. And before that, let's reload the page once. So now we are touching an existing record. So what is the expectation now? So and we have a debug statement in the trigger. So system.debug context trigger.operation type.
Before update.
Yeah. So before update.
And then you get after update. Also.
Yeah, after update, because it is going to fire for both of them, and it will it is going to run 2 times basically. Whatever the code that we write in these before in these 2 brackets, 1 and 8. So that is going to be fired 2 times, one for before, one for after update. So now I add a little bit here, and I mean it is little painful thing, but when especially when we want to debug, it is going to be very handy. So now we got the trigger thing, and before update context, there should be one for after. Okay, yeah, actually here. If you see this guy, so one time system.debug user debug before update, and then it came back and it fired again, and now this time it wrote after update. Okay, 2 times it will be invoked.
Okay.
So now let's go back. So our thing is we want to now we know that it is going to call based on whether object is whether record is created or updated. So if it is created, it will call before insert, after insert. If it is update scenario, it will invoke for 2 times. And also that is all driven whether we call this way or this way. So in the bracket, so we have to write on which object we are writing, and we have to tell the system on which context it has to fire. So if we tell that properly, so the code will be executed on its own, and we can write our own custom logic there. Okay. So far so good.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah, if you are not sure, just put the thing and play it. I mean, run it on your own. So I mean, you will understand it easily, or maybe try to go through the documentation one more time.
So, but over here, Shrikant, I think you will not write or you'll not put all of them in the same, like before, after this for the same thing, I guess, right?
Yeah, so you have to write those if conditions and all. So because sometimes you
Oh,
want,
if condition also. Okay.
so what you will say, if how do you write this guy?
I was thinking maybe we should write different triggers.
No.
Just for before
So
one trigger, after another trigger.
for best practices sake, you should never write, I mean, for one object, you should have only one trigger. I mean,
Trigger? Oh, okay.
that's the best practice. And
Got
you apply those conditions here, like however you want. Okay, so you don't want to write too many triggers.
triggers on
Same,
one.
same true for flows, because if you write multiple triggers, there is no way you can control the sequence. Like, okay, hey, I write the contact update trigger, I write contact insert trigger. The system will fire it in the way it wants, and you will not have much control, even though it is in different.
But if I tell, I mean, again, I know it. Yeah, we shouldn't do that. But it's more like if we are writing it contact trigger just for before insert, right?
Yeah.
Only for before insert.
I
But
mean,
if
it will fire for that only. But I mean, on the code you see fire triggers. I mean, there will be 8 contexts that you can fire, and you are going to write 8. Okay, so I mean, you see a lot of code, unwanted code. I mean, everything is another object. You don't want to write that many objects, and also it is not best practice for one object. It's one trigger. That's it. So I mean, that is best practice. It's not that you cannot write, but it's not a best practice.
yeah, okay.
So now, basically, we'll say if you want to fire a different logic for trigger dot insert, so that's where you will say trigger dot is insert. That's a boolean. Okay.
Got it.
So it will say, oh yeah, in if condition, you always pass boolean, whether it is true or false.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So now we'll say that guy. So now we'll say here we will pass that guy. Okay. Now there is another thing that we want to say, trigger dot this time we'll say maybe is update. Okay, so we'll use is update this time.
But when you're saying is insert, is it before insert or after insert?
So that's another good thing. So you also need to say if you want to fire this only
Before.
so let's say and trigger. So is insert, and what is the other thing that we have?
Is before itself.
Before, yeah. So is, so now it is very clear that it has to this whatever that lines that we are going to write here. So that only has to do only that scenario. And the other way to do it, so I mean, we know we have insert scenario, update scenario. People can write if that.
So the first condition you wrote, right? If trigger dot,
yeah,
if you do, is insert and then before, it means that before it inserts the contact record, it will print that it's before insert. It prints first and then
whatever is there.
Okay, it prints first and then writes it to the database, right?
Yeah, I mean the database thing, it has to pass so many things. Okay, then only it will come into the database. So I mean, not, I mean, even if it pass here, if there is some duplicate rule or something that is, it has to check. If it's there, okay, if it finds as a duplicate, then it will roll back that whole thing.
Okay.
So, now,
So basically, whatever conditions that you give under this, like is insert and before, those will execute first before it makes an entry. If it fails, it doesn't make an entry.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, there may be multiple ways we can write. I mean, especially this code, not to the question that you asked, Kishore. So you is before. So and
No, but I actually triggers are, I mean, all this we are doing it at the server side, right? So
yeah.
there is no point, like, you know, the trigger will not be, or like, if there is a condition which is actually like how you have mentioned, there is a duplicate and it wouldn't, it had to roll back, right? In that scenario, uh, i- in that scenario, it will not write before, right?
No, it has to go through before, and then it has to go through after. So let's say you are inserting a record. So it check, it goes through here, is insert, is before, it will execute that code.
Correct.
And
Okay.
again, you have insert after
After.
yeah. So insert after, okay, what is this thing? Before.
Yeah. Is after.
Then you write some, opportunity record or whatever it is, right?
So, and now, I mean, either you write this guy, so like this, I mean, here we are writing this thing, or
Yeah.
write one more thing for insert. So you say, okay, hey, this is insert, and is before, and is after. So you write either way, either this way or that way.
Or that way. Yeah, that is fine. But my question is like, if something has failed where the DML operation was not successful,
Mhm.
so in that scenario, do you still see is before?
Yeah, so it will fire. So basically, I mean, it based on the, let's say, email address, right? When you don't pass the email address in the proper format, it will go, it won't even come here. So on the UI, you change something.
Yeah,
Yeah, so
that
it
is a validation more like.
a validation, that is system validation. But again, so there are some validation rules that you write, so on the object. So those will also be triggered. So there is basically there is a I mean huge thing that order of execution.
Mm.
Look for this thing. It will tell you what are all the things and which way it is going to trigger. All that stuff. There are 18, 19, or maybe close to 20 things that it has to go through. So loads original record. I mean, when triggers and order of execution. So when you open UI, you create a record or update a record. It has to go through these 20 steps. Okay. So if it passes all those 20 steps, then only it will basically commit your record into the database. Otherwise, it will roll back that one.
Right. Okay.
So basically, there are before.
Oh, got it. Okay.
After triggers, and it has, I mean, some objects may have assignment rules, it has to go through those. Some objects will have
So now over here, say suppose like we are at step 4, right? Executes all before triggers.
yeah.
Okay. And then say suppose it failed at 6th step.
Mhm.
So then will you see what is there in before triggers?
Yeah. So basically at that time when you write that system.debug, so you will see. So but
Only
I
before.
mean, that record, whatever you try to save it to database, that one will still fail because it's failed here.
Yeah. Because that is step is failed. Okay, got it.
This is the commits all DML operations to the database. So it has to go through these things, then only it will pass. I mean, say there is a sharing value. If it is trying to share a record and maybe something wrong happened in the sharing rule, then also it will basically stop committing the transaction.
Got it.
Yeah, I mean workflows, all that stuff, auto response. I mean here there are workflows, and the process builders, flows, all those stuff will also come. That's why if it is a sensitive object or performance, I mean if you need better performance for an object, you shouldn't be writing too many things. Okay, so you can, for any object, you can write workflows, you can write process builder, you can write flow, you can write trigger. So there are 4 options that you can do. Salesforce realized, I mean, they gave too much of leverage for developers and admins. Now they are taking those workflows and process builders away from people, starting, I think, next year. So you cannot write new workflows, new process builders. So now you are going to limit yourself with either flows or process builders. Sorry, either flows or triggers.
Triggers. Okay.
Again, so you can, for contact object, you can write trigger, and at the same time you go write a flow. So now there also you can write some before update, I mean before some defaulting values and changing values, all that stuff you can do declaratively in the flow. Same thing you can do it on the program, I mean Apex program. Now there are two things. So first it will go through triggers because the triggers are high preference, and then it will go here, potentially here somewhere there will be flows, and it again goes through the flow, and it again when the flow updates, now at that times potentially you fire it before update trigger, and then it will fire before update flow, and because there is another update again it comes back to trigger. So there will be a lot of recursion also can happen. So that's why it's better to stick to one. So let's say if you want better performance, so you don't want to write flow and also trigger, even the system allows it. Okay, so now we wrap this thing. So there is a before insert scenario, and for if at all we write for any before logic, we write here. If at all you want to write any after logic, you write here. Same thing we need for update. Now we will do this thing. So all we do is update.
Do you think they will ask the question like this in the interviews?
Usually, what are the best practices that you follow? Those kind of things they will ask. The main things that are going to come now. So, I mean, potentially, this is bare minimum thing that any developer would know, and also even the next ones that I'm going to talk also a very bare minimum one. But there, people definitely ask some questions. How there is a bulkification of triggers, and how you write SOQL queries inside the trigger, and how you update how you write DML operations. So those are the things that they will typically ask. For a basic or beginner or like developer interviews. Okay, so now is it clear? So
yeah.
Because if the commit fails, right? What happens? Like, does it throw an error back to the front end?
Yeah, if you are doing it in the UI, it will throw back to the user, and sometimes it writes some some clean message. Sometimes maybe the end user may not understand that one. Potentially at that time they have to go. They say, okay, hey, there is this error ID. Maybe give it to your system admin and that thing. It is not going to be clean message all the time. Sometimes it is a little clean, sometimes it is not.
Okay.
So now we wrote the trigger and same thing. So we still have all these things in all the scenarios, and we put them in little, segregated way. And now if we write, if you see the debug message is same everywhere, it's the same thing, but it is going to fire only once depending on the scenario, and we will see the number of earlier since it was same line of code, it was showing maybe line 7, line whatever that thing. Now it is going to say what exactly is the line. So now earlier you see user debug and this one in the brackets, that is line 7, it was telling which line it was. And same thing earlier here there is user debug 7, and also on the bottom user debug 7. Now it is going to write explicitly what line is this, whether line 9, line 12, line 18, line 21. So that's how it is going to show now. Let me, yeah, when you do these things, if you when you see your local file system, so tools, debug, logs, that's where it will download all this, and it will keep you for your reference. And it's whenever you are done, so potentially you can delete them, so that you don't need to refer those log files again and again. So now let's change this thing one more time. So now, this is an existing record. Okay. So now we are updating an existing record. And let's put some email address here. So now let's save it. Yeah, we are right on time, 8:59. Let's see if we can get that debug log. Yeah, 8:59. So we got that one. Okay, I think we only got one. Get detector. There's the other one. Yeah, so I think we missed that one. So let's set the debug log again. Turn on debug log.
You will have to because it's okay, because it had a time, right? That's why you're saying you said right.
Because they don't want to capture too many logs.
Mhm.
And also Salesforce only because it is a cloud system, they only store up to 20 MB or maybe some file limit there. You have to periodically delete that logs and all. That's why you don't want to set the debug log for quite a long time.
So does that also apply for the developer console? Like when you're in the developer console where you're seeing the logs?
As long as you keep that developer console open, you should be able to see it. Now, if you see here, I close the developer console. Now, if I go there,
Yeah, it wouldn't see, I guess. Okay.
yeah, one way is to keep open and see it. I mean, the developer console, the easiest thing is you can filter easily, and that way it is little easy. But there are little ways to do this thing on the terminal also.
Right.
And also, as soon as you fire it, also you can see them. There are other ways. Yeah, so now the log is turned on and it is valid up until 9:31. So another 30 minutes. Now let's go back and change one more time. And now let's see. Yeah, so now we got 291. I think the second one usually 6.13 KB. See this guy now line 18. So we did the update, and now if you go back to our trigger, there is our trigger. So line 18 is before update. That's the first thing that we got. Was earlier on. Yeah. So this guy, so line 18, we got this guy. And then, so now it is saying line 21 after update. So if we go back to our trigger, so we have, I mean, it is in a is update scenario, and it printed is before, and then it printed is after. Okay. And it is showing the line numbers also. So that way it is confirming that it is firing a different block of code. So far so good.
Yeah, Shikha.
Yeah, I mean, if it is not clear, I mean, all you have to do is just take this code or maybe write your own code, execute it multiple times, slowly try to go through these debug logs. It will sink in. So, I mean, there is nothing new here. I mean, we have two operations: insert operation, update operation. Insert will be called for create object create or record create, anything. And obviously this one is very self-explanatory, record update. Okay, so and each scenario we have before and after. So for create there is before and after, for update there is before and after. When you are doing before update or before insert, you can change the same record fields. You can manipulate some other fields or same field that is got updated. Same thing here. So same write logic for same object fields. And in the after, typically in the after, same object fields will become read-only fields. Even if you try to update, it will throw an error. And if you typically you better write other objects, cross-object related thing. Okay. And let's maybe we can put this guy here so that it makes sense now. Use before, actually this one applies for the same
Before.
first if condition. So right here.
Right.
Okay. So and the same thing here also. And this guy use after for cross object operations. Maybe we can put this. Okay, so that's that guy. We can actually clean up this guy. We don't need this one, but if you want just to see, you can keep it anyway. It is a commented of code for you to refer it, so it will be easy later. So now what we can do, so we set all the context now. So we got this guy. So now let's apply this logic. So now let's say, so we want to see how to throw error messages. Okay.
Sorry, Shrikant, just one more thing. So can we write the whole code over here, like the method, whatever was there in the class?
Yeah. So yeah, you can write, but the problem, I mean, not problem, you are not promoting reusability. So
yeah, got it. Yeah.
the trigger, you don't want to write any business logic. So
Right,
you have to invoke the business logic by writing it somewhere else. That way, I mean, the same Apex class, if you want to use it for, I mean, the same Apex class that we write, we can use that guy for some batch thing, and we can use the same code here. So that's the better way to do the code. So
yeah.
and technically, you shouldn't be having too much code in the trigger. Trigger should be very limited one. It has to call some utility methods, service methods, and those things. Okay.
Yeah.
So
Just like calling, I think I've asked this even yesterday, but just like calling the classes, can we call the scripts?
script you
No,
cannot.
I guess
Script
I
you
cannot.
yeah, script you cannot call. I mean, these guys are not there in the org. So these are all local. And even when you write it in developer console in execute anonymous, so they're not stored really in the database kind of thing. So you cannot call this guy. Salesforce doesn't know what is this thing. So that's why if you want to call something else, those got to be in Apex.
Okay.
So there is another thing. So now working cards. So now what I wrote on the top, I wrote, okay, some records, processing records. So processing records, I put that one and I call some other thing here, trigger.new. Okay, so let's see. Okay. So now let me deploy this guy. So basically there are a lot of variables that you can call on the trigger. So earlier we used trigger. So is insert, is before, is after, those things. Now I'm using a different variable. Basically, when you create a contact, you need to know which contact you updated or which contact you created. So that's the one this trigger.new is going to give us. So I just put the system.debug. Now let's go back and maybe create our anything, either update or create. Let's do this thing. Do we have any accounts in the system? So not worried too much there. So I changed just some title, and now let's go back and try to get the debug log. And now 909. So let's pick this this guy and contact figure. So now yeah, processing records. And now you see a different thing, contact this guy, and also guys see this thing. So it is showing some details of that contact. Basically it is saying the contact information. So there is this first name Mr. Last name something, and we also change the title to this guy. And if we search for this guy, so basically in the title, so it is writing in the debug log what are the things that we are using in the trigger. So it is writing in the trigger.new. It is going to show us what is the information so that is being processed. Okay, so these are the different variables that you can access, and you need to know which contact has been updated, right? That's what we are doing here. And this trigger.new is a collection. It's not a single variable. So user debug line 7. So that's this guy. And here records contact, and it is showing one record. If at all the trigger will always, I mean, you always need to assume that the trigger will be fired for multiple records at the same time. So from UI, we are changing one record. But for API or data loader, when we use that, so let's say if you try to insert 10 contacts, or maybe 200 contacts, or maybe 300 contacts, so the trigger would fire by taking 200 records at one at a time, and it tries to process 200 records at one point of time. I mean once. So basically, here the code is going to execute. When it is executing, it is going to get 200 records at once. I mean, it is possible that it can take 200 records once, and it can process all those records at once. And that's why we always need to write our code, assuming that, okay, hey, it is going to, I may get 200 records, or I may get a collection of records, not one single record. So that's the assumption we need to go with whenever we need to write a trigger. Okay.
Yeah.
In order to see that, maybe if we can simply write a small Apex here, so create a new file, the trigger invoke. So here, let's say contact. How do we say? Let's say, yeah, let's create a contact. So for contact, the bare minimum field that from the database side it expresses is last name. So I'm just giving one contact with that name. So I'm creating an instance. I'm not saving it into the database. Okay, or let's call this cont1, and we are creating one contact. So the same thing. One more time, we are creating another contact, just instance. We are not creating. I mean, even though it says new and all, we are not creating that. We are not saving it to database. It's more like you go into edit mode, you enter something. That's what we're doing. So now we need to save this thing into the database. So list. So for that, we can take a list thing, and so I'll say this guy.
Yeah.
And then you so I invoked another variable called contacts. And now we need, I can call this way, insert cont one. This is more like how we are inserting one record at a time. And same thing I can do for cont two also. So the moment we say insert contact, so now it is going to fire that trigger. But here what I'm trying to do, I want to pass multiple records at the same time. So I say const dot add, and I will pass this cont one.
Cont two. Okay.
And then I will use the same thing. And this time I'll pass cont two. So we created two contacts and we added to the list basically. Okay, so now I will fire the insert. Insert will take list also. Now we will const. And we don't want to execute this guy because it is going to fire individually. Our main thing is we want to see trigger system.debug, how it is going to show when we insert multiple record at the same time. Okay, so we created one contact instance, we created another contact instance, and then we created a list of contact instance. And now we added these two instances to the list. And finally, we are firing the database commit or database insert. So now if we execute this guy, now let's see how that thing come. So actually here we have it right here. So now it executed that one. And now let's also, we can see it right here because it ran right here. So processing records, contact one. So now if we see one, okay, I think we use.
I think this one is a little tricky, like.
Tricky in a sense.
It's not very like straightforward. It's more like we have to.
Yeah. So.
Or maybe it is so new, like.
Yeah, maybe it's new, but you'll be used to it over the time. So we added one. So now let's look at the two also. So last name two, and you see all of this is writing under processing records. Let's also get that debug log, and I think this 14.57, maybe this one will have it. So now this is the actual one that we fired. And now, so processing records, let's processing records. So in here, well, before insert, there won't be ID won't be generated. So in the after insert, it will have that guy. So now we are in insert scenario, and now
before insert scenario.
Right here, and that's why we don't have that ID yet. And if we see here, basically there is if we focus, maybe next time we can write the last name itself so that we don't need to go through all of this thing. The bottom line is there should be two things. Let's look for last name. So that when we pass, and so last name, you see this guy. So we are this one we are still on that line 63 in the debug. And we got this one, and now when I execute this guy, we are still on line 63, and it is giving the 2. So that means it is writing two contacts. So like that, if you pass multiple records, and also I think if we say this guy contact, let's see.
Oh, you'll see one more of that. Okay.
Contact, and there is another contact on the 63 line. So that's why I'm saying, so whenever a trigger is invoked, we always need to assume that it is going to process with multiple records. So there is no way from the UI when you are executing one record update or one record create. It's not like that for mass scenario. And we always need to write for the mass scenario, that's called that bulkification. So now, I mean, somehow we need to apply our logic. Now we created two contacts. And now whenever we created a contact and when we try to update that email address, we want to do the dummy thing. That's our ultimate goal that we are trying to do from the get-go. Now let's go back and update our class. So we said from the trigger, you can invoke this class. So that the class has this update method, but there is no way we can pass a list of values here. Now we need to update this method so that it can take a list of records and process on those list of records. So let's update this thing. And since it has to take a list, so let's say list contact, and you can give some variable name for that. Okay, so we give that thing, and now since we are passing a number of records, we can, so now there is no need for us to select. And so, I mean, we are going to adjust this code a little bit. And so we can retrieve the contact IDs. And actually, I mean, we have these contacts, we can directly pass these contacts here. Okay. And now the thing is, we need to make sure we have that for these contacts. I mean, the way we wrote the trigger invoke, we may or may not pass those email address. So this guy, so we didn't even set that value. So now so this con.email, actually we have it already. I think we'll simply uncomment this guy number next line. Okay, so if there is a value and we want to add dummy, and also we want to make sure if it is already, I mean, we will come back to that. So first let's write this code for insert scenario. And when we insert records, and if the records have some email address maintained, and we are trying to add dummy to that one. So that's all we are trying to do. And now in trigger scenario, you don't want to fire the DML. So system is already executing in a DML scenario, and that will take care of it. All we have to do, we have to pass the value. We just need to update the value, and it will take care the things for us. So now let's deploy this guy. So now we have this method, and so public, let's call this guy as public static, that so that I can use it directly without creating an instance for this thing. So I can simply take this class, I go back to the trigger, and now in the insert scenario, I'll call that class, and then update email. And for contacts, I can simply pass trigger.me. Okay. So the way we have seen it, it is going to, whenever we pass this guy, it is going to pass a list of records. We take those list of records and we are passing it to that method. Okay. So now let's try to, let's try to go back. I mean, we can either go to UI and create this guy, or we can use this same thing. And let's say, let's give some, So yeah, for now, let's try to execute this guy as is. And even though, I mean, this guy shouldn't even go to our, I mean, it should go to our class. But here, if we write some system.debug, it shouldn't even go here, right? So because there is, for this thing, since we are not entering any email, it shouldn't go here. Okay. System.debug on email. Maybe I'll put it before we are touching that thing. Okay. So we deploy the code to the server, and trigger also, I think, let me deploy one more time. So trigger has it. Now we are going to fire one more time. I mean, if you see the database now, if you go to contacts, so that 1 and 2 contacts should be here already. I think we committed them already to the database. And there is this one, and there should be another 2 right here. So those contacts are already there. Now, basically, we are going to create one more time. I mean, if the duplicate rule fires, and maybe that can prevent our thing. Let's see how it goes. So it looks like it went through, and we are at 9:26. We have debug log until 9:31. So we should be able to see the debug logs. So let's take this 9:25 one. I think this one should have it. So the same thing that we executed, and code unit started. What is the thing that we wrote here? So the processing records. Yeah, right here. So processing records. It should have again, will have those 2 things, 1 and 2. All those things will be written here. And then, so it is also writing that guy. And here there is method, we call that method update, I mean class update email. So it called that guy, and also it basically it entered that method. I mean, this is how you read the thing. So method entry, method exit, all that stuff, update contact email, and it entered with this guy and with that email thing. So, but we don't see any of that log for that email piece that in the class, actual class that we wrote. So we also wrote for con email. We for line 7 in that class, you shouldn't be seeing it because we have this wrapper around it, basically some check that we are doing. So now we will go back to the thing, and we will say we want to pass this time email also. So we pass email equals to, so we say 1 at gmail.com, and we will take, we will add for this guy, and for this one we will say 2 at email.com. So again, I mean, the
Is that first name email, are they case sensitive?
No, usually not. So whatever you enter, it should take it. So in the same way that you entered.
No,
Oh,
for the last name, I can just put the word last name itself.
oh no, it is not case sensitive. So
Okay.
So now if we execute this guy, so let's close this guy. Let's bring the new log. So this dot email count 1. Okay, variable assignment. We didn't write. Basically, we need to look for this line. I mean, since I did not add that system.debug some text, we cannot now the way we have to check. So we have to check for this email address itself. So, and also we have to look for
So it appends dummy, right? That is what you are looking for, right?
no, I mean it will eventually. So I'm looking for this line number debug statement. We wrote the debug statement in the fx class, and you see user debug 7 debug 1 email.com. So that's the one we wrote. So basically we take exactly the same thing and we printed that guy, and then we are adding dummy. So that's the one it is actually showing in the next one. So line 8 this dot email dummy 1 at gmail.com and email.com. It is adding that guy. Now if you go back and look for those records, and those records should have the business. I mean, let's look at those records now. So there is this one you see here, dummy1 at email.com. So now, I mean, for this contact, even though while we are writing the Apex code, I mean, where is that code? Basically this guy, trigger invoke. So here we are only saying, okay, hey, create a contact with 1 at email.com. But our custom code is fired in between, and it basically added dummy at email.com. I mean, it prefixes that thing. I mean, simple way to showcase how these triggers will fire all that stuff. Okay. So we have the trigger and we fired this thing. And in the after, we did not write anything. So let's take this thing and let's try to put the same thing in the after. Okay. And see what is going to happen. So we will fire. I mean, we are still working in the insert scenario, but the same code, I put it in the after also. I mean, trigger.new will also be available in the after context also. I mean, so still in the insert operation, there will be use after. In the use after, we are going to get this guy. And now,
is it going to do dummy?
we'll see. I mean, there is a little catch that I kind of told you already, but you will see it. What I said, use before context.
Oh, okay. After it can't be doing on the same thing, right? It'll error out.
Yeah. So basically, in the update mode, the same object fields are in read only. So let's deploy this guy. And so 932. So let's set the debug log one more time. Yeah, I mean, we could have just gone through developer console, but I want you to be comfortable with this IDE as much as possible. That's why I'm taking little more time. Otherwise, we could have gone to the developer console itself. I mean, in the developer console, there is no way you can debug the code. I will show you how to debug in next, I mean, after this thing. Okay, so let's try to create these records again. So You see here, fatal error. Insert failed, first exception, and actually let's bring our let's download our logs. So insert failed, first exception on row 0, duplicate. Why duplicate? Okay, actually it is. It is actually checking duplicate thing. That's why it failed. Not because. Okay, let's look at the debug log. There are some duplicate rules that system is checking, and it is failed because of that, not because of update. I think that we are making because it found duplicate, and system is checking. Okay, we already have one at email.com, one at two at email.com. So it is trying to check that guy, and because of that it failed. So let's try to change our code little bit. So that one and 2. Let's put that thing. Let's use it this way, and then let's execute it again. Yeah. See here, this is a different error this time. So insert failed, first exception on row, first row, cannot insert after insert. Basically what we did in the trigger, we went to the trigger, and the after insert, we call the same method. In the same method, this is the reusable code. So we did not write the code again. We are using the same code, and we pass the same variables and all. And the thing that we did, so we tried to update a variable on the same record again. So it doesn't need to be same email address or anything. Even if I update some other field, it will throw error because in the after context scenario, the same record is in read-only mode. But here we are trying to update same object. That's why it is throwing an error.
So, Srikanth, so we have that class called twice, right? The before thing, when it does, ideally it should add dummy in front of dummy, because and then when it comes to after, you're trying to update the same record where the fields are now non-editable.
Yeah.
So since the second thing failed, the entire thing will be rolled back, right?
Will be rolled back. So nothing will be stored in the database now. See here one dummy one, so we stop there. So okay, so that's why you should never be so same thing. If you try to do in the update scenario, if you try to write anything, it will throw the same error. Okay, so now we'll go see one more scenario. So there is this Arthur song, and there is this email address for this guy. And so if we try to update this one, can you expect what is going to happen?
Did you didn't change the code, right?
I didn't change the code. So, what is going to happen here?
So it will trigger update. Update is before.
And then, so will it add dummy here?
But sorry, I did not see the code if you have added that class in the update. Yeah, so it will not.
Yeah, so basically now we are updating a record, not we are not creating a record, we are updating a record. And in the trigger, we are not calling any method. So it is not going to do anything. And at the same time, it is not even going to call this context and these things. So for a second, let's comment out this thing. And there shouldn't be any debug statements that are going to write into the our console. Or even if you, even if we have it, potentially it will only write this thing, but not anything else. Okay, so now let's keep this guy like this one, and let's try to run this update and see what is how our debug logs would look like. So this code is deployed, and now let's go change this guy to 1, and now simply save. Try to get the debug log. And now I think 6.14 should be all right. Yeah, it called the trigger, and basically 26. So it fired before update, and then it fired after update. Okay, so it called this guy. It called this guy. So basically line 17, sorry, line 26, line 30 are called. So line 30 is here, and line 26 should be here, and nothing else. So I mean, to see that thing, basically all you can take user debug, do Control F, and basically that is called only 2 times, and 26 and 30. And now, so now we need to call, we need to make, okay, even if when somebody updated the email, we want to add that dummy thing. So all we have to do is, so what do we do for that? Where do we put the code?
Before, right?
Yeah, so I mean, we can only put the code in before. If you put the same code in the update after, it will again throw the same. And let's make, yeah, we commented out that guy. So that one, I mean, we are not going to do insert now. So we are going to update, and let's deploy this guy. And now let's go back and reload this thing. I mean, ideally, we don't need to reload. So sometimes it runs from the UI, it runs in the old code context. That's why I'm just reloading the page. So now if I try to update maybe some other field, I mean, I don't need to update same field. I am updating some, okay, so phone number field. Let's not this guy, maybe somewhere else. Let's update. Okay, so I'm saving it. And now immediately you see that the main thing came. And same thing, I mean, obviously now, you know, this is not going to work, but let's just put it.
So trigger works on the entire object, right? Like, I mean,
Yeah.
can we limit the object values? Like, I mean,
here it will come everything. Trigger.new, there is nothing that you can do. But if
yeah,
you
but no, where you said trigger contact, trigger on contact, right? Can we just put something like contact dot first name, last name, email, something like just on those fields?
this is object, not the field. So so the syntax for this one is only for object.
Object, okay.
So now, so we put it in there. So now let's try to change something else. Maybe
So if you put dummy.
so this, no.
Yeah.
He added the after thing, right?
So you think, see, this one is not any useful. I mean, for a real end user,
Yeah, we cannot.
it makes sense. Not, I mean, for real end user who is not developer savvy, so they don't understand what is happening. I mean, it is throwing some information, but usually the end users won't have any access to backend classes, triggers and all. For them, it is all Greek and Latin. So, I mean, these are the times we may try to give some useful message for the end users, not like these things. But for developers, this is good enough information. Okay, they know, okay, hey, there is something that is causing some problem in the contact trigger, and that is the thing that they can easily go contact trigger, they can find it, and from there, so there is this class update contact email address, and basically it is showing the line numbers also, and it is calling from line number 33 on the contact trigger, and they can easily go, they can see, okay, line 33, so they know that this is a culprit, and now they have to understand why this is culprit. And I mean, if right now we have it here, they see this method, I mean, same method, it works here, it is not going to work, then they have to understand the trigger after update. I mean, anything is after context, you should not be updating the same object fields. That's the bottom line. And if they know that thing, potentially all they have to do is just comment out and see what is the best place to write that code. So that's all they have to do, and simply move on from there. Okay. So let's try to save it now. Actually, it was able to take the code from the server, the new code. And again, there is another thing here. See, it keeps on adding the dummy thing. So now I mean, that's where we need, I mean, we need to think about all those scenarios when we are writing the code. Now, potentially we have to see, okay, hey, does it have dummy? If it has dummy,
then don't have it.
I believe we may have that thing somewhere. Contact is not null, and con dot email contains, I think. Contains. So here,
Dumb.
dummy. So now, I mean, if it contains, we don't want to go here. Basically, we say contains. I think we need to say the opposite one. Like, let's see here. Yeah, so that was able to take it. Let's try to execute this one more time. And again, it shouldn't be adding one more dummy. So that is one more thing that we should. Okay, so dummy 3.
Oh, it added.
So that means this condition. Okay,
You said and, right? Not equal to null and.
I kind of put the
No, it should be more like or.
no, it's not R. Basically, this guy, we are saying, okay, so what is this guy going to see? So if there is an email, this one basically we know we have email there. So that one, no matter what, that is true. Now we are saying if it has dummy, so go inside, do something. If it doesn't have dummy, so then only do that thing. That's what we are trying to do. And I think not sure whether that is right syntax. Let's see. Or maybe there may be something like contains not something. Let's see. I mean, it's actually throwing syntax error.
Should not be prior to the parenthesis. If
No.
not,
No, that not itself is saying it is not expected. It is not. I mean, it is not a valid syntax. That's what it is saying. So let's not do this thing. And on the contents, let's see if there is anything else.
Maybe not contents.
Yeah, let's do one thing. Contents, maybe we can do it. Let's take this guy. Let's put this one. We know it. Let me know it has to have this thing. And, okay. So now.
We can write. Could we write another if statement inside the if?
Yeah, I mean that we can do. So basically, we can write if. There are there, right? So basically, then we have to write else condition. So that's what we need to do. Let's see if there is any easy way.
Contains none.
None. Okay, contains none, and then we'll say this there. Let's try that thing. Contains. So basically, yeah. Now let's try this thing.
Oh.
Sometimes none input string.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that should be. Let's try to this thing one more time. So 1, 2, 3. Yeah. So basically now let's go back and put the actual one. Now it should put 1.
1. Oh.
Okay. And that's none dummy. So okay. So it has to go inside. Basically now it doesn't have that thing. That's none. It doesn't have it. Okay, contains none. Let's reload the thing. No, it's not going inside. So we have update trigger. So use update, we have the method and it is being going in there. And now it comes here. Contains none. So now let's also do the debugging a little bit. Let's do that debug. Okay, so now first we need to set a debug point. So we come here, we know it has to at least come here. So we are setting the debug point.
How did you set that? How did you set that?
So you simply come here, just click this guy when it shows, and when you click, I mean on the red, it will go away. When you just click that guy, it will set a debug. Okay.
So you just click, right? You don't have to click anything before you select the how.
You just go to the class, and so any place you can.
Okay.
Just, as you are moving, it will allow you to set breakpoint.
Okay.
So now all you have to do is set launch Apex debugger with current file. That's what you have to say. And when you say that, and now when I click, so now it already came here. Okay. Now it got me some contacts. I mean, obviously it should have got 2 contacts. That's why it is array here, and it has those 2 no, actually it is running in one contact, but we always need to assume that one it is going to come with multiple, right? That's why it is array. And now it put that thing in 1, and here there is one the thing. So the email, we see it, and the con email contains none dummy. So this one will get true. So con email is not equals to null. So which is true. Now we have this thing, con email contains none dummy. Then so the thing, it has to get boolean. If it gets boolean, so boolean and boolean, so that's when both are true, then only it will go in. So this one contains none dummy, so that's why it won't even go inside. So now, so these are the debuggers to go to next line and those things. So when I say step into, basically it already exited that thing. So because it has two lines, the next one step into. So if we have one more thing here, so it would have gone inside. But since we don't have any line of code after this thing, it basically exited from there. So looks like our condition is not working properly. We know that one doesn't have dummy, so that's why we don't even go in here. And so let's see here. What can we do this thing? Let's see. Contents only. Matches. Returns a number. Okay, that is not going to help us. Adding does not contain logic to trigger. Okay, let's see this thing. Does not contain. Field contains string. I mean, we can always write that else condition. I'm trying to see if there is any way we can avoid that guy. Subject contains whatever the word. Yeah, this negation, I tried this thing. I'm not sure why that doesn't work. Thing contains. Yeah, we only need contains. We got that guy, and we need that negation. That's the one I tried. And we have that ampersand. And this is exactly we tried. So we have that guy. So if we have that kind of thing, so we wanted it to go in. So 957, we have 1003. So reload. Yeah, now it added dummy. So this guy contains. Now let's try to add one more thing. Dummy again. If it doesn't contain dummy, we want it.
That time it is not equal to null. I mean,
no, all the time. I mean, this
not
one
equal to null and.
No, I mean, that's not the one, but just for your thing, I can parts. We got that guy, and then we'll say this guy, and then we'll do this thing. We'll put it here, and I mean, just for the sake of this thing, I will move this guy actually here. So now all we are saying, okay, we are writing this guy to con email to the debug, and then we are going, if we are checking whether it is null, whether it is not equals to null. I mean, obviously we have some email, it is going inside, and then it checks, okay, whether email contains dummy or not, and then it goes here. So let's add just for the debug sake. And to go to the next line, so we'll add one more statement. So now let's deploy this thing. Okay, so it's good. We are calling in the before update. We have it. Okay, anyway, this should only call once. Let's reload. And let's make this guy one positive case first. So this one should go and add this thing, dummy, so that added. Now one more time, this time I add something. Okay, it added. Now let's get the debug log. So let's make sure the debug point is at the right place. And we got this guy. So we saw the email dummy, and so now it it has that email. It will go inside. It came here. Now con.email that contains dummy. So now it already has been. Oh, maybe it is case sensitive. I think that's why. Okay. Now it will go. And now, yeah,
that makes
let's
sense.
make, I mean, there is a for string class, there should be contains ignore case something.
But when you're adding capital D, it is still adding small d, right?
Yeah, but that's the one we wrote in the code, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the
But-
Salesforce behind the scenes, it is converting basically. Even though when you update uppercase, it is converting into lowercase. So that's Salesforce thing. Now let's look at this contents. Case. So string has some function.
I guess you can convert the whole string into uppercase and then
actually
dot contents.
there is a default thing that it has. Contains ignore.
Okay.
So let's use that guy. Contains. Actually, we can do this guy. Yeah, contains it at least.
Okay.
Now we'll do that. It doesn't matter now. However you want to put, so we can put that guy. And
Okay.
So we got that guy. So now let's go back. Try one more time. Let's take this guy. Completely remove it. So it had dummy ones. Now, yeah, so it didn't add. So now let's go back, clean up the code a little bit.
Yeah.
We'll take that. And ideally, I mean, if you can put everything in one line, maybe just put it there. And now we don't need this guy, and we don't need this guy. And, so when you click this guy, it will go to the indentation just for understanding things. So in Salesforce Apex code, you don't need to, I mean, indentation doesn't do much, but especially in Python and also the indentation is very important. So now we got that guy. So let's deploy. So again, let's go back. So let's do positive one. It should update. And now let's do some negative test case. And now basically everything is working. Okay, so that's how we do the triggers. And I mean, you use one utility class or maybe service class, you write it outside and you invoke it from the trigger. And we also see how to debug the process. You need to download the debug log. And as you are debugging, potentially you will immediately see what is the value and all. And you can step through the code and you can, I mean, it is a little easy for you to troubleshoot later. So, yeah, I mean, we are at 10. So, I mean, if you have time, I can go through Apex the test class. I think it's better to stop here.
Yeah, I would say let's take it to the next class.
I mean, there is a lot here. I mean, now we haven't really played much. Let's say, I mean, the concepts are very similar. Now, I mean, we only see the same object one. Now, let's say if you want to create a task, or maybe if you want to create an email, I mean, as soon as you create any contact, you want to send an email to the contact saying, okay, hello or something. Immediately you can use this after triggers. Either after, I mean, you don't want to use insert. I mean, obviously you can use insert also. If it is when you just created an email, I mean, contact, you want to send an email to that guy, you would write in the in here, basically insert and after insert. You write that thing and it will send an email to that contact. Whereas when every time you update a contact, I mean, even though it doesn't make sense to send emails, if you want to send an email, you would come here, you write that one. Because it is a cross object, I mean, since you are not doing anything on contact, now you can do other objects thing, and you can send emails, potentially you can write emails, or if you want to create a task for that contact, like maybe meeting event or something that you want to create with that contact, potentially you can create events so that you can meet that customer maybe after 1 month or something. If you set that date, immediately it will be on there on your calendar and you can meet that customer and so on. And those are the use cases typically you can see in the trigger. I mean, now you understand what is the trigger. I mean, what are the various ways you can invoke your custom code, and how you segregate your code, and I mean, how do you use different contexts. Yeah, pretty much that's, I mean, this is very high level, and obviously as you see the business requirements and how you can use this modularized code and all. So I mean, here we didn't write any code in the trigger. In the trigger we are only telling where to go or to what point of time. That's how we wrote. And in production code, again, so we shouldn't be seeing all these debug statements. Just for our sake, I mean, understanding sake, we put those things. And yeah, that's how, I mean, you can do either this way or you can do either this way. I mean, it is all developer preference or company best practices. So however they are doing, so maybe we just need to follow those things. I will be sending some trailhead thing for these things. Go through that. Potentially that will help you understand a little more, and also maybe if I don't cover anything, so maybe you can see it. And also the bulkification is very important. I mean, we didn't write any SOQL commands or anything. I mean, here we had one, so we readjusted code. We don't, I mean, if you are working on that same contact or same object, you don't need to retrieve the records again. The trigger.new is going to give you all that, especially in the after update, the update scenario, there will be another thing called trigger.old and a trigger.old map, I think. So those will give you, because before state, before and after state, you can see the values, what it, how the record was before update and how the record in the after context. So basically what the user is setting, and before setting what was the value. Let's say if I update this contact, same thing, maybe here dummy or maybe then this guy like this. The trigger context trigger.world map and trigger.world will have this guy. Before changing, we had this .com, and we will have, I mean, the trigger.world will have that, and trigger.new will have for this field with a new value. So that's how you differentiate. Okay, if there may be some business scenarios, okay, hey, whenever an email is changed, now send an email. Now, I mean, not every time send an email. So only when the email is changed, maybe send an email. At that time, you have to look for, okay, the record is changed. When the record is changed, trigger will fire, and then you have to check for that individual field. So now you got to go compare trigger.world map, and again, so we are talking about a number of collection of records. We have to check for each record. So now we are in a collection context, and in the collection, maybe you may be sending 200 contacts that are updated, but not 200 contacts emails you won't update. So let's say one out of those 200 you may update only 10 emails. I mean 10 contacts emails you will update, and at that time you only want to send emails to those changed email related contacts. So only 10 emails you will be sending. So at that time you need to find what are those 10 contacts that got email update, not the remaining 190. So that's where you have to compare each record, and all those things are explained in those trailhead things that I'm going to send. Please try to go through it and try to understand. This is very critical thing for Apex developer to understand those contexts, how to retrieve the value, how to compare those values, especially in a collection scenario. So that is very important. Try to go through, maybe if you have time by next class, at least read through those or try to understand. And yeah, we will meet next Tuesday. Is that will that work next Tuesday or?
Yeah, Tuesday is fine.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's meet on Bharti. I don't know when are you guys moving to Atlanta?
I think June, end of the June, Srikanth.
Oh, you are.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, most likely I think we can wrap up by then.
Okay. Okay.
So I'm guessing maybe 4 or 5 classes. I should be able to cover the remaining topics. One is now next class. I mean, I'm hoping this one is good enough for you. Once you understand, maybe applying to different objects, different business scenarios, it should be straightforward. Once we understand the concepts. Now in the next class, let's try to look for the testing. I mean, you wrote these classes, how to write test classes for these things. That's what we are going to see. And then there is, I mean, the batch scenarios, how to write asynchronous Apex. Those things we will see. Okay. Yeah, I mean, just practice it a little bit. You will understand. I mean, if you just go by looking at it, maybe you may not be able to get it all. But if you just write some code, definitely you will understand everything. And now you know how to debug the code, and it should be very easy. You make mistakes, and especially we made some small mistakes here. I mean, we wrote the code exactly the way. The only thing that we did was we forgot, basically there is a case ignore thing. And actually this was exactly the same code that we kind of wrote in the first try itself. We put this negation thing, and the only thing that we missed was that ignore case. Yeah, I mean, those are small things that they can happen, and as you try to debug the code, you will definitely get it. And I mean, obviously, Google definitely is there. So, I mean, it was actually pointing to the same thing and the same thing that we wanted right here. Okay. All right. I think we can end the call here. We will meet on next Tuesday.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, Srikanth.
Bye.
Thank you. Have a nice week, a long weekend.
Thank you guys. Bye-bye.